I just won't think Right. Hello, my name is Rupert Thomson. Secrecy is my new novel. Secrecy is set in Florence, and this is Florence in a dark time. Into the city at the beginning of the novel walks a brilliant, eccentric wax modeler by the name of Gaetano Giulio Zumbo. He's there at the invitation of the Grand Duke. He's a man haunted by his past, and little knowing the mysteries, the dangers, and the love that lies in wait for him. We followed him through a low doorway and into a large, cool room. Hanging from the vaulted ceiling were several planks, each of which had a verse from the Old Testament carved into it. On a long trestle table in the middle of the room was an array of Marvulia's annals. I moved closer. They struck me as both primitive and pagan, partly I thought because they were life-size, lifelike, and partly because the glazes flouted the laws of nature. The wolves were all blue, for instance, not an ordinary warm blue like the sky, but a blue that was bruised and bleak, a chilblain blue, with hints of indigo, flint, and dirty ice. His goats were the blackish red of old wounds or dried blood. His sheep were rust orange, like metal left out in the rain. Every piece Marvulia made had an injured or untended quality of having been mistreated or abandoned. He asked Faustina what she thought. "They frighten me," she said. He nodded, but said nothing. "They're like the worst parts of ourselves, the most savage part, the part we're ashamed of." She stopped in front of one of the cold, blue wolves. "They're like nightmares." Still he didn't speak. She wanted to know how he chose the colours. "I don't choose," he said. "They just arrive." "But they're wrong." Marvulia's smile was instant and oddly lascivious. "Not to me." Back in the kitchen he poured more wine. When we were seated he asked what I was working on. I told him I was interested in the plague. I thought I saw a morbid streak in you. Knees wide apart he reached down and tugged at his genitals. "How long have you two been together anyway?" "We're not together." "Just as well." "Why?" I said. "Why just as well?" "You don't belong together. It doesn't look right." I felt a bright needle of anger go through me, but I fought the urge to challenge or contradict him. Instead, I glanced at Faustina, who was smiling. Marvulia noticed. "What's so funny?" "If your colours are anything to go by," she said, "I'm not sure we should believe a word you say." He remained motionless for a few moments, then burst out laughing. "You're quite something, you are. Madonna rotta in culo if I were 15 years younger." He went to fill her cup again, but she told him she'd had enough. Not long afterwards, he stood up to leave. Outside, in the courtyard, a warm wind was blowing, and the leaves of a scruffy palm tree scraped and clattered. My horse skittered sideways, almost tripping over its own hooves. Marvulia scowled at the sky. There's bad weather on the way. Up ahead, the land blurred as the storm blew in from the north. I was thinking about Marvulia and what, if anything, we had in common. For all its unpredictability, his work was rooted in the earth, and in the things of the earth. It seemed to house resentment and the desire for vengeance. It failed to achieve transcendency. And I'd found the man himself sarcastic and devious, deliberately provocative. His claim that Faustina and I looked wrong together still rankled, and in the end I had to turn to her and ask her what she'd made of the remark. "He was jealous," she said simply. "You think so?" "Why? What do you think?" I shrugged. Though clouds were massing, we stopped beside a river. While the horses drank, I watched the water sliding past, impassive, solid, a curious yellow-grey like travertine. Faustina picked up a leaf and held it at arm's length, then let it fall. Off it went, scrawling on the smooth blank surface, as if it had been activated by the contact and was delivering a message. The fast approaching storm, the whirling leaf. I had a sudden, acute sense of the shortness of time. I reached for Faustina's hand. I thought I could feel the life rushing through her veins, such optimism, such naivety, no inkling that it could end at any moment. I turned her hand over, touched the tips of her fingers, one by one. "They're beautiful, your fingers." "Are they?" She looked at her hands with such detachment that they might have been a pair of gloves. Not her gloves either, someone else's, someone she didn't even know. I felt all my words had come too late. Nothing I could say to her would make the slightest difference. Something inside me crumpled, and I stared off into the trees. When I turned back, a tear had spilled in a straight line down her cheek. I touched the path it had left, the shine on her skin, then put the finger to my lips, and almost before I knew it, my mouth was on her mouth, and I was kissing her. "The first time I saw you," I said. "What?" she murmured. "The first time you saw me, what?" Wind clutched at the trees behind us, the leaves rattled. "I don't know. I was shivering, but I wasn't cold at all. There aren't any words for it." "You weren't short of words before." Did I talk too much? I pulled away, looked down into her face. "I meant everything I said. You're lovely." "Am I?" Her voice was light as before, but melancholy, fatalistic. I kissed her again. "What did you think," she said, "when you first saw me?" "I felt I could look at you forever, and that would be all I ever needed to see." "That's too much." "It's true," I said. "Would you rather I felt less?" "Maybe. I don't know." Lightning tongued the high ground to the north. Seconds later, thunder tumbled across the valley, loud and clumsy. Our horses shimmied, eyes flaring white. As we scrambled up into our saddles, the wind hurled itself at us. We could hardly hear each other speak. Then the rain came, flung in huge, cold handfuls. We were soaked in no time, and the city was still miles off.